Taking a flight to visit my long-distance boyfriend, we encountered severe turbulence. I got so sick, it was a mess. I even wrote my farewell letter. After landing safely, I excitedly shared this experience with my boyfriend. After listening for a while, he calmly asked, "Are you done talking?" "As soon as I'm done, I'll go read some documents." The words, "let's get married soon," got stuck in my throat. Later, he frowned and asked, "Why break up? Just because I didn't chat with you?" I replied, "Yes, I should thank you. If I hadn't left you, I wouldn't have known." Some people hang on to every word I say. Chapter 1. On a Friday night, as usual, I took a plane to visit my long-distance boyfriend. However, this time was different, as we encountered severe convective weather. The plane was violently shaking at an altitude of 10,000 meters, even the oxygen masks dropped down. The sound of passengers crying filled my ears. Each jolt of the plane felt like death beckoning to me. I went through the most terrifying 30 minutes of my life. In despair, I opened my phone and hastily wrote a few lines of farewell, thanking everyone who appeared in my life. Thank God, the plane finally landed safely. At the moment of landing, all passengers were in tears of joy. This near-death experience was too dangerous, almost like a horror movie. Even as I left the airport, my legs were like jelly. A thought kept flashing in my mind, "Olivia, you narrowly escaped death, good fortune awaits you." By the time the plane landed, it was late at night. I called a car and went straight to my boyfriend's place. Andrew is a doctor, and he usually finishes work late. We practically entered the house one after the other. We hadn't seen each other for a full 2 weeks, but when Andrew saw me, he just smiled faintly. As he changed and washed up, he said to me, "You should rest first, I have a few documents to read." I knew Andrew was very busy, seeing patients at work, reviewing medical records after work, and finding time to write articles. Normally, I would politely let him be. However, the recent experience was too harrowing, I had to share it with him. I threw my luggage aside, rushed into Andrew's arms, and began to pour out my heart to him. I told him about the pregnant lady sitting next to me, 5 months along, traveling alone. I had comforted her until she stopped crying. I also mentioned that my best friend had recently prayed for me. Maybe this turn of events was the Bodhisattva's blessing, and I must go back to offer thanks to the Bodhisattva. I cried and laughed, jumping up and down, talking for several minutes. Andrew, however, remained in one position, sitting on the sofa. He held me loosely with one hand and absent-mindedly rubbed the armrest of the sofa with the other. I knew he would do this when lost in thought. But how could he be so distracted when I was sharing something so important with him? I called out to him. "Hey, Andrew, I'm talking to you." He snapped back. "I'm listening. Are you done talking?" "Once you're done, I'll go read the documents." Andrew has handsome features, but his character is always calm and distant. In our 4 years of love, I've hardly seen him show any emotional fluctuations. Even now, as I poured out my near-death experience to him, his expression remained unruffled. It felt like what I was passionately telling him wasn't my own first-hand experience, but a poorly made popcorn movie. My heart suddenly felt a chill. Trembling, I said, "Andrew, I was really scared on the plane just now." But Andrew had already stood up. He walked towards the study, leaving behind only, "As long as you're okay." "Okay, as long as I'm okay." Is that it? I had just experienced a life-threatening danger. I stared at Andrew's face, trying to find a hint of fear, worry, or compassion. But I found nothing. It felt like an invisible hand was tightly gripping my heart, making it hard to breathe. I stopped Andrew, almost pleadingly asking him, "Do you really have to go read the documents now? Andrew, I almost died on my way here to see you, why won't you comfort me for a moment? Have you ever thought, what if the plane had crashed?" In the darkness of night, Andrew's expression seemed somewhat helpless. He pushed away my hand and softly said, "Olivia, the probability of a plane crash is very low." Chapter 2. My boyfriend, who had been on my mind day and night, was close by. But at this moment, I felt an indescribable sense of loneliness. I sat alone on the couch for a very long time, feeling lost and desolate. In the dim light of the living room, the faint glow of my phone lit up. I opened the notes and saw the words I had written in immense fear. Dear Mom and Dad, I love you. If there's a next life, I'll repay your kindness in raising me. Dear Andrew, I love you. If I survive this time, let's get married. I was just about to talk about the part where I wrote the farewell letter. This note could truly become my final words. But Andrew interrupted my sharing so casually because he needed to read documents. Of course, that was a serious matter. But did it have to be done tonight? I couldn't believe he couldn't see the fear in my heart. As a doctor, he could keenly perceive a patient's concerns before surgery and comfort them softly. Why couldn't he sense my fear? Was he truly unable to see it, or was he just choosing to ignore it? I knew, of course, that the probability of a plane crash was lower than that of a car accident, and I was indeed unharmed. But that didn't mean I couldn't be scared. At least tonight, I really needed him. When I thought I was facing death, the thing I couldn't bear to lose was him. I should at least be entitled to a few words of sympathy from him. Was that too much to ask for? It shouldn't be, right? Andrew could handle even the most difficult patients. If I was so easy to handle, how could he possibly fail? Thinking like this, I pushed open the door to the study, intending to demand a few sweet words from Andrew. But instead of reading the documents as he claimed, Andrew was on the phone with someone. A crisp, gentle female voice seemed to be tearfully saying, Dr. Andrew, I'm scared. And Andrew softly replied, Don't be afraid. I'm here. Don't be afraid. I'm here. The few words I longed to hear were effortlessly spoken by my boyfriend to someone else. I shuddered suddenly, my breathing becoming rapid. I knew I shouldn't interrupt Andrew's conversation with someone else. But at that moment, blood rushed to my head, and I almost forgot everything else. I rushed over and snatched Andrew's phone. Who are you telling not to be afraid? But I was met with a pair of calm eyes. Andrew took a step back and hung up the phone. I stared at his expression, tears uncontrollably streaming down my face. Who is she? Why are you telling her not to be afraid? Andrew rubbed his forehead, seeming very helpless with my pressing questions. He said, Olivia, stop causing a scene. I have a complex surgery scheduled for next week. My partner is a newcomer, going into surgery for the first time, and she's been crying all night out of nervousness. As the lead surgeon, is there a problem with calming her emotions beforehand? If her nervousness affects the surgery in any way, how can I justify the patient's trust in me? Chapter 3. With each word Andrew uttered, my face burned hotter. He was trying to snatch someone from the clutches of death, a great responsibility. As I questioned his emotional involvement with others, I felt like an unreasonable clown. But why couldn't I receive his comfort when I was just as afraid? Was I not as good as his colleagues? Biting my lip, I complained softly. She's afraid on the operating table, I almost had a plane crash, and I'm scared too. If you can comfort her, why can't you comfort me? Andrew sighed heavily. He stood up and embraced me, soothingly saying, All right, don't cry. I'll comfort you now, okay? After this busy spell, I'll take you out for some fresh air. I knew Andrew well. This was already the highest treatment he could offer to comfort me. Because in our 4 years of love, I had heard these words many times. When I finish my PhD, I'll take you on a trip. When my internship is over, I'll spend quality time with you. When I'm done with this assessment. But he always had new things to be busy with. Every time, I told myself, as long as he had the intention, it was enough. But was it really necessary to make promises he never fulfilled? What's worse, I couldn't blame someone in a noble profession for neglecting their partner in life. In the end, I almost fled the room in panic. Perhaps due to the relaxation after intense stress, I fell into an unprecedented exhaustion. I quickly washed up and then curled up in bed. Sleep came swiftly, but the dreams were restless. It felt like I was back on a violently shaking plane. I woke up drenched in sweat, with a dry mouth and parched tongue. It was already early morning. Beside me, Andrew was still asleep, but I couldn't sleep anymore. I picked up my phone, intending to distract myself with something. Unconsciously, I opened WeChat. Despite being in a long-distance relationship, Andrew and I had a long string of daily chat records. Most of the time, though, it was me doing the talking. I shared every detail with Andrew. Whether it was meeting a cute dog on a walk, the cafeteria introducing new dishes, or winning $10 on a scratch card. I shared every little thing with Andrew. Even if I received an interesting emoji, I couldn't wait to forward it to him. But the white dialog box always had just a few sporadic words. Okay, got it. All right. Busy. It's your decision. Even with just these few words, I would carefully consider them, trying to discern Andrew's emotions in his replies. I had grown accustomed to Andrew putting most of his time and energy into his career. So, when he delayed responding to my messages, or didn't respond at all, I never minded. Because I could keep my own life fulfilling as well. I didn't expect his response on trivial matters. But when it came to life and death for a girlfriend, why did he act as if it had nothing to do with him? I wanted to shake the sleeping Andrew awake, questioning if he still loved me. But the thought of the important surgery he mentioned stopped me. After a lot of overthinking, I finally felt drowsy again. The next day when I woke up, Andrew was already gone. Even though it was the weekend, he had to be on duty. Taking advantage of this free time, I told my parents and friends about my experience from yesterday. With my parents, I didn't dare tell the truth. I just said we encountered some turbulence, but the pilot handled it well, and we were safe. But with my best friend, I boldly embellished the story, praising myself for remaining calm in the face of danger and how brave I was. Perhaps I was too dramatic in my storytelling, my best friend suddenly blurted out. Oh my, hearing you talk like that really scared me. I've been avoiding flying lately, darling, you should fly less too. I chuckled and replied. Okay. Then, suddenly, I froze. Chapter 4. Over a year ago, due to changes in my job, Andrew and I started a long-distance relationship. We were separated by 1,500 kilometers. Many people warned me that long-distance relationships require more effort. Since Andrew often worked weekends, I would fly back to see him whenever I had free time. So, how frequent were my trips really? I hung up the phone and opened the flight booking app. As I scrolled through the options, my brows furrowed. So far, we've been in a long-distance relationship for 15 months. I've visited Andrew 14 times. He's visited me 3 times. And one time was because he was on a business trip nearby. To travel from my place to his, I had to switch between 3 modes of transport, taking a full 5 hours. English, I endured the hardships of travel, but I never felt wronged. Because I always set out with anticipation. I've always been understanding of Andrew's hard work, so why couldn't he be understanding when I encountered danger on the journey, scared out of my wits? Was it too much to ask for a few comforting words? Just a few words, wouldn't take much of his time. I paced around the house in a turmoil, unconsciously ending up in front of the fridge. Andrew hadn't cooked, his kitchen showed no signs of use. But as I absent-mindedly opened the fridge, I froze once again. The refrigerator was empty, except for a lunchbox. On the pale yellow lid was an endearing little duck. I had forgotten amidst my sorrow from last night that I had brought Andrew 4 zongzi. I had spent the previous night making them. It was my first time learning to make zongzi, and surprisingly, they tasted good. Excited, I had carried them over 1,000 kilometers to let Andrew taste them. As it was nearing mealtime, I decided to take the lunchbox and go to the hospital by taxi. I was quite familiar with Andrew's colleagues, but this time, I saw a stranger. Sitting across from Andrew was a girl with a lovely doll-like face. When she called out to Andrew, there was a playful lilt in her voice. I immediately realized she was the girl who had called Andrew last night, claiming to be scared. She had easily received Andrew's comfort. I tried to muster a smile for her. but my facial muscles felt stiff. Andrew also noticed me. He walked over to me with a neutral expression, introducing, "Phoebe, this is my girlfriend." At that moment, the phone on the desk rang. Probably some issue with a patient, the two of them hurriedly passed me by, heading towards the ward. I had grown accustomed to Andrew's neglect. Leaving the lunchbox on his desk, I took a stroll in the hospital garden. But upon my return, I felt my blood rush to my head. On the office floor lay my little yellow duck lunchbox. 4 zongzi, 1 missing, 1 untouched, all spilled on the ground, inedible. I watched Phoebe frantically cleaning the floor with tissues, and Andrew sitting beside her, trying to downplay it, saying, it's fine, it's not worth much, you don't need to apologize." At that moment, a sharp pain shot through my heart. Chapter 5. For zongzi, even if bought outside, wouldn't cost more than 20 yuan. What can 20 yuan do in today's society? English, buying a cup of milk tea, taking a random taxi, or even buying a capsule toy from a gashapon machine on the roadside all cost far more than 20 yuan. So, these zongzi being wasted seemed not worth lamenting. But, I made them with my own hands. I traveled a long way to let my boyfriend taste them. However, they were casually knocked over by his colleague. I suppressed my anger and asked Andrew, "What's going on?" He awkwardly scratched his head and said, "It's my fault. When Phoebe handed me the lunchbox, I didn't catch it. It seemed like he really thought I was blind. In the past, I always put Andrew's feelings first. Whenever he felt slightly embarrassed, uncomfortable, or in a difficult situation, I would take the initiative to give him an out. But this time, I wouldn't. At this moment, I seemed more prone to anger. I don't know if it was because of these few unappreciated zongzi or because of my passionate but repeatedly ignored self. It felt like something changed from the moment I stepped off that turbulent plane. I ruthlessly exposed Andrew's lie. When I walked in, you were clearly sitting in your own seat. Why would she hand you the lunchbox from so far away? Are you lying for her, afraid that I would blame her? Andrew froze in place. He seemed to finally realize that I was angry. And Phoebe beside him timidly approached. "Olivia, the lunchbox was too hot. Andrew said these were made by you?" Then I was really ignorant, I'm sorry. I glanced at the bewildered Phoebe. And at Andrew, who stood between me and her, as if afraid I would lash out at her. For a moment, I had nothing to say. I could only tiredly rub my forehead and ask Andrew. "And then?" Andrew might not have understood my meaning and instinctively replied, "Next time, you can make more for me to eat." It felt like a bucket of ice-cold water was poured over me. My voice already carried a hint of anger. "Next time? Do you know that it took me 4 hours to make these zongzi? And then I had to carry them, taking a 50-minute subway ride to the airport. Then go through security, board the plane, fly for 2 hours, and then take a taxi to your house. Do you not cherish them at all? Andrew, don't you need to apologize to me?" It felt like it was the first time I got angry at Andrew. As the words came out, my heart pounded. We've been in love for so long, and we've had conflicts before. But we never really argued. Firstly, because Andrew's emotions were too stable. Secondly, because I truly loved him deeply. But I didn't expect that he couldn't even sense my anger. He sighed and calmly said, "Olivia, I know you spent a lot of time coming to see me. But why do you exhaust yourself like this? Whether you come to see me or not, I'm here." In that moment, it felt like all my energy had been drained from my body. I stared at the man I had loved for 4 years. His calmness, rationality, tolerance towards Phoebe, all made my passion seem like a joke. Chapter 5. During my second year of college, I met Andrew in the library of the neighboring medical school. That day, he was sitting by the window. Wearing a clean white shirt, with handsome features and an extraordinary temperament. At that moment, the world seemed to quiet down. I lingered next to him for a long time, finally unable to resist moving closer to see what book he was reading. It was then that Andrew suddenly looked up. Our eyes met, and my heart almost stopped beating. From then on, I ran to the library every day. After many chance encounters, I gathered up the courage to introduce myself to him. Hello, I'm Olivia, majoring in Chinese at a university. In truth, I didn't expect him to remember me. After all, I had heard early on that he was the medical school's renowned study god known for his aloofness, and he had countless admirers around him. But that day, a gentle smile appeared at the corner of Andrew's lips. His voice carried a hint of indulgence. He said, "I know. The way you sneak peeks at me is very cute." After we made our relationship public, many people couldn't help but comment. That foolish girl managed to catch the idol doctor of the genius in a romantic drama, right? I believe in love again. After all, Andrew was the medical school's acknowledged handsome and intelligent school grass, while I was just an ordinary girl in terms of looks and talent. From the perspective of the average person, it did seem like I was reaching high. Because of this, I had some insecurities. However, I quickly realized that Andrew loved seeing me smile and enjoyed listening to me talk. Whenever I spoke about something with joy, his eyes would soften. Perhaps, more than serious exchanges with his classmates, he also needed my liveliness to add some spice to his life. Two seemingly mismatched individuals managed to weather the storms of 4 years together. Long-distance relationships are so difficult, but I persevered. However, at this moment, I suddenly lost confidence in this relationship. I always thought Andrew's neglect towards me was due to his innate aloofness and inability to express emotions. But could it really be true? He knew how to care for a colleague's emotions before her first time in the operating room. He would even take the blame for her mistakes, just because he feared she would be blamed by me, affecting her state before the operation. In reality, he had high emotional intelligence, knew how to interact with people, and had the necessary courtesy. It's just that he never showed these sides to me. As I clenched my fingers into my palms, I felt utterly exhausted. Yes, your method is good. From now on, I don't want to be so tired anymore. If I don't come to see you, your interactions with colleagues will be more harmonious, right? I knew my tone carried a hint of sarcasm. Andrew must have noticed too. For the first time, a hint of impatience appeared on his perpetually calm face. The room fell into silence for a long time before I heard him say, "The ingredients for Zongzi are not expensive. Why bother arguing with her? Her emotions weren't great recently. If this affects the surgery, it will be tricky." He truly, just like my understanding of him, analyzed the value of items, the probability of events, and then evaluated how we should react and the consequences of not doing so. But he intentionally or unintentionally ignored the fact that, at the very least, he should give his girlfriend the same level of respect as he gives his colleagues. Suppressing the intense pain in my heart, adjusting my breathing, I asked Andrew, "When do you get off work?" Confused, Andrew replied directly, "In 3 hours." That was enough. Enough for me to return to his house, pick up my luggage, and then leave him. Ironically, when I confessed my feelings to Andrew back then, I had mentally prepared for 2 whole months. Deciding to leave him, however, took less than 2 days. Chapter 6. I actually considered whether I needed to bid him farewell. After all, in matters of love, one should also see things through to the end. In the past, watching TV dramas, I never understood why the female lead always had to cry her heart out when breaking up. It seemed ugly and stupid. But now, I think I truly understand. In that moment when I tried to completely extract my love for him from my body, tears were invaluable. Emotions were uncontrollable. I was on the brink of losing my sanity, wanting to rush back and scold Andrew fiercely. But, why bother? Let him feel how much pain it is to lose him. Wouldn't that be giving him face? I quickly wheeled my suitcase out of his house. I changed my flight. Sitting in the boarding area, watching the sky gradually darken. Just before boarding the plane, I received a WeChat message from Andrew. "I'm home after work. Olivia, why did you suddenly leave?" Normally, receiving such esteemed words would make me ecstatic. But now, I just found it ridiculous. Suddenly left? How can it be sudden? In love, no one just disappears suddenly. Anticipation in retreat, disappointment accumulating, we had been drifting apart. He just never noticed, and I finally woke up. I replied to Andrew. Let's break up. His call immediately followed. I simply turned off my phone. Perhaps because the experience of encountering strong turbulence 2 days ago was too unforgettable, I tightly held onto the armrest during takeoff, eyes closed. In my heart, I silently repeated, I am safe. Nothing will happen to me. However, tears flowed uncontrollably. I cried uncontrollably at 10,000 meters. I thought, this is the last time I cry for Andrew. Starting from tomorrow, I will gradually erase all traces of his existence. Perhaps it will be hard to forget him. But I am determined. I can take it slow. But I won't turn back. Chapter 7. On the first day of learning to forget Andrew, I received some good news. My best friend Mandy rescued an abandoned little golden retriever and asked me to help spread the adoption message. Seeing the pitiful little life in the video, I softened immediately. I said, I'll take care of it. Mandy was surprised. Darling, don't joke. Doesn't your home have Andrew, who is a clean freak? Andrew, being a doctor, had some cleanliness quirks. Before, for him, I couldn't even touch cute little cats or dogs I saw on the street. But in my future plans, there won't be him anymore, so why care about his preferences? Since I am now alone, I should be a little happier. I casually said. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I broke up with him yesterday. I was the one who broke up, but it was Mandy who was screaming in shock. After a while, she calmed down and asked me. What was the reason? I thought I was calm enough, but my voice still sounded tearful. He doesn't love me. In fact, I could find some evidence of Andrew loving me in our daily interactions. For example, in his first year of work, he gave me his salary card to keep for safekeeping. I was surprised and kept refusing, but he insisted on it. For instance, his WeChat was open to me. If other girls sent him ambiguous messages, he neither replied nor deleted the conversations. I saw it and felt a bit jealous. He would earnestly tell me that he had the confidence not to betray me. For example, when we traveled, he would carry my bag and didn't mind taking photos for me. But if I needed a magnifying glass to find his love, does that mean I never really felt his love? After listening to me, Mandy pondered for a while before saying, forget it, keep the little dog for a few days. If you and Andrew reconcile one day, I'll find a new owner. I couldn't blame Mandy for thinking this way. Because she knew how much effort I had put into my relationship with Andrew. She also knew how much I cherished this relationship. Moreover, from a worldly perspective, Andrew had a bright educational background and a stable career prospect. He was intelligent and reliable. Especially with a handsome face. I should be content. Even if he ignored me, I should be happily self-indulgent, never getting tired. But it's like holding a cup of water. Whether it's cold or warm, suitable or not, only I know. Promises can be fabricated, romance can be disguised. Only heartache comes from the soul, unable to deceive others or oneself. I don't want to deceive myself anymore. If Andrew loves me, why didn't he worry when he noticed my fear? Even if a person has many good qualities, if he doesn't love me, then everything else is in vain. Chapter 8. I had been with Andrew for 4 years, and it's not like we've never had arguments about breaking up before. It was the second time he missed my birthday. Feeling a bit upset, I half-jokingly said to Andrew, out of 365 days in a year, it's only one day that's my birthday. If you keep this up, I might just break up with you. Actually, he just needed to coax me a little, and everything would be fine. What I wanted wasn't a perfectly edited photo I could post on social media. All I wanted was his promise that he would spend every birthday with me from then on. But Andrew said, Olivia, I hope that breaking up is a decision we both carefully consider, not just a casual joke. If you bring up breaking up, I won't stop you. Because when a patient falls ill, it's never something I can control. That's just him. Always calm, rational, and logical. So, this must be the reason why he stopped contacting me after I proposed breaking up and rejected his calls. I didn't expect him to be even more straightforward than me. Perhaps my suggestion of breaking up also relieved him of a burden. Thinking about this, I felt a sense of relief too. I opened WeChat and deleted Andrew's contact information. Unexpectedly, that evening, I received a call from an unknown number. On the other end of the line, Andrew sounded a bit tired and hoarse. He said, "I performed 3 surgeries today and I'm exhausted. So, I'll keep this short. Olivia, stop messing around and add me back on WeChat." Andrew's tone was so firm. He probably thought that as long as he softened up a bit, I would return to him. Yes, in this relationship, I had put in 200% of my sincerity. While he seemed more like a cold and detached observer. Only when he realized that things weren't going as he expected, would he condescend to make things right himself. A considerate girlfriend would give him that chance. But I wasn't considerate. I held the phone, half smiling, and said, "Have you forgotten that I broke up with you? I'm not kidding, and I'm not playing games. Andrew, please don't contact me again in the future." Andrew's tone turned serious. "Olivia, you owe me a breakup reason that I can accept." I knew I wasn't as smart as Andrew in many ways. But I could also sense that some of his words had deeper meanings behind them. I said, "The reason you can't accept is the reason." Andrew let out a low, angry curse. His calm voice seemed to be suppressing anger. Planes don't just fall out of the sky so easily. Olivia, standing here safe and sound in front of me, what else can I say to you? Indeed, planes don't just fall out of the sky. It's said that out of 1.1765 million flights, only one fatal accident occurs. And that flight that was turbulent due to air currents did indeed arrive safely. In the end, I stood in front of Andrew unharmed. But I truly experienced 30 minutes of extreme terror. I chuckled and said, "Should I not be afraid just because it's not likely to have an accident? Even if I know it's not that dangerous, as the person I intended to spend my life with, shouldn't you comfort my emotions? Even when Phoebe seeks your help, you comfort her. I've been so earnestly nurturing our relationship, why don't you even have a word of gratitude? You're just convinced that I won't leave you. But Andrew, you have disappointed me so many times, let me disappoint you once too. I will leave you. Because you do not cherish me." In front of Andrew, I put myself lower and lower. Finally, down to the dust. I truly made a mistake. How can he see me, covered in dust and so humble? When there's a mistake, it needs to be corrected. Ending this unequal relationship is a reasonable and rational solution. There was a long silence on the phone. I could almost hear Andrew's intense breathing. Right before I hung up, I heard him say, "Well, I'll change. Olivia, this time, it's my fault. Give me a chance to cherish you, okay?" Chapter 9. Andrew's tone was almost pleading, making my heart tremble slightly. But this was already the 4th day since I had asked to break up with him. In other words, while Andrew still thought we were in a romantic relationship, he waited a full 4 days before reaching out to me. It was truly surprising that he managed to contact me amidst his busy schedule. If I were to accept his apology, then what about all the times I had waited for him before? I shook my head and softly refused. "I'm sorry, my feelings for you are just that much. But you've been wasting them. After accumulating enough disappointment, you can't stop me from leaving." Only after experiencing a near-death accident did I realize what kind of life I truly wanted and what kind of partner I desired. I have my own education and job, capable of living a decent life on my own. What I need is not great wealth and luxury. All I ask for is a comforting response from my partner when I seek solace. On that terrifying night, I really hoped he could be there with me. But he wasn't. So, my heart was truly hurt, and it was beyond my control. The breakup withdrawal was more painful than I had imagined. For years of emotions had already been deeply ingrained in me, becoming an indispensable part of who I am. I would think of Andrew in countless insignificant details. For example, when I walked my newly adopted puppy and saw a beautiful sunset. I took out my phone to take a picture, only to realize later that I shouldn't share these moments with Andrew anymore. Or when my supervisor talked to me, promising a promotion and a raise, and mentioned that in the second half of the year, I could apply for a transfer to the city where Andrew was working. I thanked my supervisor, but I no longer needed that transfer. Even a week later, when I attended a classmate's wedding, the bride warmly greeted me, saying, "Olivia, I'll give you the bouquet later." She was one of the witnesses to my campus romance with Andrew. My smile froze for a moment, but I honestly admitted, "We've broken up." The bride hesitated for a moment and then said uncertainly, "But Andrew said he would come too." She pointed behind me. "Look, he's already here." My breath caught slightly. But eventually, I turned around slowly. Under the light, Andrew seemed a bit thinner. He stared at me intently, his eyes seeming to conceal some restrained emotions. It seemed unnecessary to skip a friend's wedding just to avoid an ex. I passed by Andrew without even saying hello. I quietly sat in my seat, snacking on sunflower seeds and chatting with the classmate next to me. After a while, someone suddenly sat next to me. It was Andrew. He had switched seats with the person next to me. As the ceremony was about to begin, I didn't want to argue with him at this moment, so I ignored him and turned to watch the ceremony. But he spoke up. He said he took time off specifically to fly over to see me. I've thought it over, and there's no fundamental contradiction between us. So, there's a chance for reconciliation. Olivia, for years of emotions aren't easy to come by. You can't just say no and walk away, it's too childish. On the 29th day since the breakup, Andrew attempted to win me back for the second time. He remains as calm as ever. Even in trying to win me back, he sticks to facts and reasoning. Maybe he's right. There's no melodramatic third-party interference between us. No parental opposition. It seems like we have a good chance of making it work. So why did I give up halfway? Chapter 10. At this moment, the newlyweds on stage embrace and kiss amidst the applause of the crowd. I feel a tinge of emotion as well. There was a time when I imagined this scene countless times. Whenever I saw a beautiful wedding dress or setting, I would quietly store it away for future reference. I never thought there would be a day when I would voluntarily leave Andrew. But nothing is impossible. I just had no choice. But I have no regrets. I wiped away the tears from the corner of my eye, then smiled and asked Andrew. For years of emotions, not easy. But have you given more than me? Andrew, you hate fragrances, so I never dared to buy perfume. You like black and white tones, so I only wore my strawberry bear skirt once in front of you. You dislike noise, so even when watching shows at your place, I wore headphones. You prefer plain food, so I gave up spicy food. You like cleanliness, so I didn't get a pet. We have so many mismatches, yet you never felt it. Because it was me who was accommodating you. But no one is tireless. Even if that person is me, I would feel exhausted. And you're right with one thing, I don't have to work so hard. He has his reasons. I have mine. My reason is, I don't want to give my love anymore. I regret the love I once poured out. Andrew's face suddenly turned pale. His Adam's apple trembled slightly, and he hoarsely promised. I will change. You told me, I can change everything. You don't need to accommodate me anymore. Olivia, can I be the one to accommodate you? I really don't want to lose you. This time, without a doubt, I saw a hint of tears in Andrew's eyes. It turns out, even someone as composed as him can have moments of losing control. Perhaps he likes me more than I had imagined. But, is that all there is to it? I gaze at Andrew, my tone calm. Just a will change, are those the only two words? We are both adults now, not teenagers who can express their feelings with a love letter. We should focus on actions, not just words. You said you would change for me, but how can I believe it without seeing results? A few words won't sway me anymore, Andrew. In the past, you could, because I loved you. I chose to believe every word you said. I was willing to endure the disappointment after each unmet expectation. But now, I'm slowly falling out of love with you. So you can't blame me for being a bit picky. I'm not sure if Andrew will make a change for me. Anyway, he has disappointed me so many times already. One more time won't make a difference. But regardless of whether that change happens or not, I won't be waiting for him in the same place. After this farewell, I continue to find ways to shift the focus of my life. I got a gym membership. As long as I sweat enough, I will sleep deeply at night and won't dream of Andrew. I made zongzi again, this time with an even better taste. I shared them with my colleagues and friends, receiving unanimous praise. A few weeks later, I got promoted, doubling my salary. Actually, I deserved this position long ago, but I hesitated to compete because of Andrew in the city. A few more weeks passed, and while walking my dog near the neighborhood, I met a new neighbor. He was young, tall, with a wheatish complexion and a neat crew cut. I was walking my golden retriever. He was walking his border collie. The two dogs were having a great time playing together. The new neighbor greeted me as well. My dog's name is Gentleman, what's yours called? I smiled and replied. His name is Fortune. He smiled back. That's a down-to-earth name, sounds nice. But why did you choose that name? I had a moment of absent-mindedness. Because, as I walked down the stairs of that plane, I told myself, Olivia, you survived a great danger, there must be good fortune ahead. Andrew once occupied most of my life. Now that he's gone, I thought I would lose a big part of myself. But in reality, I've only lost him. And I've gained the whole world anew. How is that not considered fortune? So, on the 77th day of the breakup, I met a new friend. His name was Harley. Chapter 11. Harley worked as a children's soccer coach at a training facility near the neighborhood. Passing by their training ground, I often saw him laughing and playing with a group of kids. It was clear that he had a lively and outgoing personality. He was nothing like gentlemanly or dapper. Our interactions were always easygoing from the start. Sometimes we would run into each other while walking our dogs, and we'd chat for a bit. If we didn't meet, we didn't force it. Neither of us were chatterboxes, but when it came to topics that interested us both, we could talk for hours. Later on, we exchanged WeChat contacts. Harley always replied to my messages promptly, and if there was a delay, he would explain why. Due to work commitments, I sometimes had to travel for a couple of days. When I asked him to help walk my dog, he would either do it without hesitation or straightforwardly tell me if he couldn't. With Harley around, I could relax. I didn't have to worry about slipping up and revealing my bad student nature. And I definitely didn't have to fear the disappointment of unanswered words. Mandy was initially hopeful that Andrew and I would reconcile. But as he made no move, she grew impatient too. She complained to me. All talk and no action, what's he waiting for? I pinched her cheek and chuckled. Yes, why did you still believe him? I had stopped believing in him a long time ago. Perhaps it was the frustration with Andrew that led Mandy to push me into exploring a new romance after meeting Harley. She firmly said, Darling, everything happens for the best. You should thank Andrew for not pursuing you. Quickly forget about him. Indeed, I found myself thinking less and less about Andrew. Even when I did, the memories seemed hazy, covered in a layer of dust, blurry and indistinct. After leaving Andrew, I was open to loving someone new. But I wasn't planning on starting a new relationship so soon. After all, I was still a bit tired. That love affair wasn't grand, but it was memorable. I thought I needed some more time to myself. But not long after, my resolve wavered. That day, due to nearby construction cutting off the power lines, the entire area was without electricity. I was at home, wondering how to solve dinner without power, when the doorbell rang. Harley stood there with his gentlemanly smile. "Olivia, I remember you said you're afraid of the dark. So I came over to bring some candles and see if there's anything you need." I did mention to Harley in passing that I was afraid of the dark. But that was a childhood thing. And I never expected Harley to remember such a minor detail I mentioned. I was sure I hadn't shown any hints of crossing the friendship boundary with him. But even as friends, one should be able to empathize with each other's fears. This kind of mutual understanding and concern was something I had never experienced before. How could I not long for it? Suppressing the flutter in my heart, I politely thanked him. "Thank you for thinking of me." On the 127th day of the breakup, I realized for the first time that I was beginning to look forward to love. Not the kind of love where only one person foolishly gives, but the kind where both are equally invested. A few days later, Harley asked me out for dinner. He found a good reason, saying it was a highly rated pet-friendly restaurant. But how could I not figure out that pets were not the main focus at all? This date went very smoothly. As we parted ways downstairs, Harley seemed to be struggling with something. We stood very close. So close that I could even smell a faint, clean scent on him. I subconsciously licked my lips. Uncertainly, I thought, was he about to confess? Or was he going to kiss me? But just as the mystery was about to be revealed, someone called my name. "Olivia." It was Andrew. He stared at me and Harley, his whole body tensed up. Chapter 12. I was a bit surprised to see Andrew again. I thought he had given up on trying to win me back. There was some stubble on Andrew's chin. He always used to be so well-groomed, how could he neglect himself like this? Looking at him, I felt a bit strange for the first time. I asked Harley to go home first. He kindly raised his phone and told me, "I'll be waiting nearby. If you need anything, just call me." I softly replied, "Okay." Watching Harley walk away, Andrew's Adam's apple bobbed heavily, his eyes slightly fierce. "Who is he?" I honestly answered. "A potential romantic interest." Veins immediately popped on Andrew's forehead. "Olivia, we dated for 4 years, only broke up 4 months ago, and you're already getting into a relationship?" "Actually, we've been broken up for 4 months. I thought the days after the breakup would be very long and hard to endure. But I really got through it, and it doesn't seem that bad after all." I looked up at Andrew and said, "We broke up. I hope you won't come looking for me again." I pretended to leave, and Andrew suddenly got anxious. He reached out to stop me, saying, "I have something important to discuss with you." He stared at me as if he didn't want to miss any expression on my face. "I have an opportunity for an overseas training program. If you agree, I'll come to your city for a year of study. After my training is over, your job can also be transferred here, and we can live in the same city. You won't have to travel back and forth anymore. Olivia, you said I needed to make some changes to prove my love for you, and I have. Don't choose him, choose me, okay?" I trembled slightly holding the dog's leash. I was surprised that Andrew was willing to change. Perhaps it was because I had been disappointed by him so many times, so to see him change once did surprise me. But then again, he was always a genius. He always ranked first in every subject at school and excelled in his medical career. Making sacrifices for love doesn't require too much technical skill. With his intelligence, it should be a piece of cake. For the sake of a relationship, when I take 99 steps, he should also take the first step. I taught him to take that first step. The rest can be taught slowly. But do I really have that patience? In teaching him, wouldn't I have to invest even more emotionally? And I am truly exhausted. By Harley's side, I don't have to worry about not getting a response when I act cute. I don't have to worry about my birthday being forgotten. I don't have to worry about being stood up on a date. I don't have to worry about being left behind while walking. I don't have to worry about my carefully prepared food being ignored. I don't have to worry that when I need a hug, he'll offer cold logical reasoning instead, telling me I don't need it. In the eyes of the world, Andrew is outstanding. One could even say he's at the top of what I could reach. If I were to marry him, perhaps we could have a marriage that others envy. But what I need isn't the envy of others. I need a partner who understands me. I want to be someone who I truly consider happy. Not someone others consider happy. I smiled and said very seriously to Andrew. How about we just let it go this time? But, next time, remember what I taught you. You can't disappoint other girls who love you anymore. Andrew's pupils contracted sharply. He seemed to want to say something more. But my little dog bared his teeth at him, causing him to retreat repeatedly. I smiled at Andrew and said, "Let me introduce you, this is Fortune. Because I feel happy leaving you." A hint of pain crossed Andrew's face, and he almost gnashed his teeth as he choked out. "But leaving you, I won't be happy." Upon hearing him say that, I lightly furrowed my brow. But the sense of relief that flowed through me like unraveling a cocoon made me realize I didn't make a mistake. There are many voices in the world. I want to listen to the one closest to my heart. I took Fortune home. It wasn't until half an hour later when I went to draw the curtains that I was surprised to find Andrew still standing under the streetlight. The streetlight cast a long, stiff shadow of him. Why wasn't he leaving? But whether he leaves or not, it's up to him. Suddenly, Andrew squatted down, arms wrapped around himself, burying his head. It looked like he was crying. Because his shoulders were trembling. But what did that have to do with me? He ultimately became irrelevant to me. The roses have withered. No matter how sincerely he waters them, I won't change my mind. Regretful? Definitely. How can there be no regret? I loved someone with all my youth. The beginning of the story was so perfect, but we have no intersection thereafter. However, I must go plant new flowers and bear new fruits. Life must move forward and get better and better, right?
Chapter 13. Extra. Andrew often felt his life was boring. He perfectly inherited his parents' intelligence and was fortunate to have good looks. Therefore, studying, advancing academically, and job hunting all went smoothly for him. His life was like a steadily rising straight line. Others envied him. But only he knew, he found everything in life uninteresting. Until he met Olivia. Whenever he saw her, she was always smiling. However, Andrew didn't understand. She came from an average family, wasn't particularly beautiful, and had quite ordinary intelligence. Why was she so happy? But she was like a vibrant flower growing in the wild. Not particularly stunning, not even elegant. Yet full of life. That was precisely what he lacked. And, surprisingly, he found himself liking her a bit. Originally, he thought that being in a relationship was troublesome. Because he had seen his roommate in a relationship. That girlfriend was demanding, not only asking for a 1-month dating anniversary gift from his roommate, but also getting furious in public because his roommate got wrong the dress she wore on their first date. His roommate had a meal with a female classmate, and she was jumping mad. Andrew frowned repeatedly as he watched. Love was too troublesome. It was better not to get involved, in his opinion. That was Andrew's conclusion. However, Olivia was an exception. She was truly considerate. She was caring, accommodating, and obedient to him, as if she had no temper at all. When he was with her, he could be late for important appointments. He could refuse food he didn't like. He could tell her he didn't like a certain piece of her clothing. Just a little kindness from him occasionally, and she would be grateful. He really enjoyed this relationship. Seeing her constantly changing and tirelessly pleasing him, he even once thought about marrying her. The pressure from his chosen career was immense. In order to go further in his career, he had to invest almost all his energy into work. Olivia might be the most suitable for him. For someone like him, emotions were just a small part of his life. Or rather, they could be non-existent at all. He was confident about that. But what he absolutely couldn't have imagined was that she, who had always worshipped him like a deity, would quietly leave. The reason? It was such a trivial matter. At first, Andrew felt incredulous. Then came the anger. People fly on planes every day all around the world, why was she the only one being so anxious? Statistically speaking, she shouldn't have any problems at all. In fact, she was sitting peacefully in his house. So, what is the meaning of the comfort and consolation added by the boyfriend afterwards? The reason he comforted Phoebe was also all for the sake of the patient. But she left so decisively. She didn't even give him a chance to argue. Andrew thought about whether to just let it go. He had warned her long ago that breaking up was not child's play. Once broken up, he would not try to reconcile. If Olivia could leave him over a small matter, she could leave him over another small matter. He didn't have time to deal with that. But strangely enough, before she brought up the breakup, he could work without distraction, but after the breakup, he began to think of her all the time. Andrew was sure he was attached to her and unwilling to let go of this relationship. So he decided to fly to her city, say some soft words to please her, which was the biggest concession he could make. He never liked traveling, but for her, he could endure 2 hours of flight noise. But still, she was not appreciative. The usually gentle girl suddenly became sharp and articulate, making it hard for even him to resist. She even demanded visible changes from him. Andrew was a bit annoyed. He had gotten used to her always thinking for him, why couldn't she continue to do so? Andrew decided to put this matter aside for now. But he gradually realized that he couldn't focus on anything, not even his work. After learning about his breakup, Phoebe enthusiastically pursued him for a few days, but he was too indifferent, and she wisely gave up. The girl his colleague introduced him to didn't even catch his interest with a single glance. His colleague teased him. "Andrew, you have high standards. What kind of girl do you like?" Andrew was speechless. He once thought that he was indifferent to emotions, and Olivia wasn't that perfect either. Even if they broke up, it didn't matter. He could just find someone else who would love him wholeheartedly. But when he truly lost her, he was surprised to find that she was irreplaceable. So, let's change for her once. Anyway, coax her back, get married, maybe have 1 or 2 more children. By then, she wouldn't leave him so easily. But he didn't expect that after just 4 months, Olivia would start dating another man. He had begged her so humbly. But she stubbornly said to him, "Let's just forget about us." Andrew ultimately didn't accept that overseas assignment. Because he thought, this girl would definitely regret it. Maybe in a few days, she would realize that the other man was nothing compared to him. After all, he wasn't as handsome as him, didn't have his high education, and didn't even have a secure job. Besides spending all day making her happy, there was nothing worth liking about him. When she comes back, he can overlook past grievances. But, he guessed wrong again. 6 months later, she had a wedding with that jerk. He really didn't understand where he lost. He even speculated whether she couldn't swallow her pride to ask him to reconcile. But at the wedding, she was so happy. Even her not-so-pretty face lit up. Perhaps roses nourished by love are always bright and dazzling. Although Andrew didn't come on his own, he was able to attend because of a big red envelope. He got drunk at the wedding banquet. A few classmates dragged him into a guest room to sober up. They chatted. "Hey, I didn't expect Andrew to be quite sentimental. Our Andrew has a bright future ahead, don't know how Olivia made up her mind to break up." "Yeah, he's so outstanding, how did Olivia make up her mind?" Andrew closed his eyes and fell on the bed, his head pounding. In the overwhelming darkness, he seemed to see that terrified girl again. Tears in her eyes, but joyfully talking to him. "Wow, let me tell you, it really felt like I was on a roller coaster, but 100 times scarier than a roller coaster. The oxygen mask was dangling in front of me. But I'm so amazing, I kept comforting the lady next to me. Andrew, give me a hug. I almost couldn't see you." Her voice got lower and lower, as if she was afraid he would be indifferent to it. This time, he gently embraced her. In his dream, amidst endless tears, he said to her, as if saying it to himself, "I'm also afraid I won't see you again. Olivia, I really love you."